Hey, my name is Josh Thompson, and you're watching Texas Platinum.
What's going on, guys? Texas Platinum is here with a new video this week. Arkansas just happened. Wasn't a very fun game to watch. One of our worst blowouts that we've encountered really since Charlie Strong, it feels like. Kind of a demoralizing game. Matt Myers was there in the flesh to witness it. He's going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to kind of preview the Rice game as well. So look forward to that. But it's going to be more from a Texas perspective, just being that it's Rice. I don't think you guys really want to hear us analyze Rice all that much. So we're just really going to be focusing on our team. But before we get into it, please like and subscribe, comment as well. Really helps us out with our growth. You may or may not have noticed that we hit 2,000 subscribers. I think it was the day before the game on Friday. So pretty exciting stuff there. Thank you guys for helping us reach that goal. We're on the road to 3,000. So we'll see whenever we hit that goal. But thank you for all those who have subscribed over the past couple of weeks as the season has started, really helping us finish off that goal and make that push at the end. Pretty amazing that we met it, really. And excited for the next 1,000. But with all that said, I don't believe we have any more announcements. Myers, I'm going to hand it over to you. Kind of paint the picture. Leading up to the big loss, what was it like traveling, making the drive to Fayetteville, and just being a part of that atmosphere?
Man, it was electric. It was definitely a very good venue for a college football game, a good college town. I mean, it was a lot of fun, honestly. You could tell that there in Arkansas, they care about football a lot more than most of the Big 12 schools do. You kind of feel like the SEC vibe out there, which is cool. But I had a lot of fun out there. Their fans clearly hate Texas. They clearly made this a huge deal for their, they haven't had Texas come to town in a while, and they went all out for it. There were so many horns down shirts, so many horns downs. Like if you don't like horns down, you shouldn't have went because they were everywhere. But I don't mind that. But yeah, it was definitely an electric atmosphere. The stadium wasn't as loud as I thought it would be, but it was still really loud. But yeah, overall, I had a good time, man. And until the game happened, of course, then it kind of went downhill fast. We didn't have much to cheer about. But no, man, I definitely want to go back to Fayetteville in the future, and I'm happy to be in the SEC. And most of their fans were super nice and happy that we're joining the SEC too. So I had a good time until the game went poorly.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Let's go into that game then. Initial thoughts. I'll hand it back to you again, Myers, since I did a lot of the talking at the beginning. Thoughts on the game as a whole for first meeting of business.
Yeah, the game went bad. I think that clearly the whole town was pumped for Texas, and clearly that Arkansas Razorbacks football team was super pumped. I mean, you could just see it immediately in the trenches that they definitely brought the juice way more than we did. And it bothers me because that kind of speaks to like a problem that Texas has had forever now. We can't really seem to match the intensity of these programs that are supposed to be beneath us, but they get up for us like crazy constantly. TCU, Arkansas, A&M, all these teams, and then we just haven't matched that really since MAC. And Saturday was definitely like the latest example of that. I mean, just physically whipped us in the trenches. I hate to call out Denzel Okafor, but man, it looked really bad for a while. Number 78. Bijan had nowhere to run. I read a stat that he had like 64 yards rushing, and like 59 of those yards were after contact. So he had five free yards of rushing that entire night, which is absolutely insane. Hudson Card was rattled, and he missed some open receivers. And then whenever he did hit them, they would drop the passes. So literally everything went wrong. We were not prepared for that moment. And our defense, I thought, played well, but they got gassed pretty quickly. And it's hard to blame them when they're going 3 and out over and over again. And then by the third quarter, they were just tapped out. So so many things went wrong, so many things to improve. But Casey looked good. Silver lining. Casey Thompson, hopefully that. I'm glad that it happened now, I guess. I guess that's the silver lining instead of Big 12 play, where we found out a lot of our deficiencies of our team in a really blatant way, a pretty embarrassing way. But yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts on the game, Trevor? Give me some of your intel.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious from the beginning of the game. Well, maybe not even the beginning, because our defense did look pretty stout to start it off. I was very impressed with really the first half as a whole. I mean, they only scored one touchdown the entire first half, and I think we held basically in the red zone, or even before that, we held them to 3 field goals and a touchdown. So the 3 field goals, every time a team settles for a field goal in general, I look at that as a win, because that's 3 or 4 extra points that you're saving from the board. So that was big. But offensively, definitely, I mean, the line play was just atrocious. Not only were we getting dominated, but we didn't look like we knew what we were doing. Yeah, I could call out a lot of names. I guess I'm not going to. Well, you know what? I will call out one because this player I really admire a lot and think he's very technically sound, but I saw a lot of mistakes out of him and Jake Majors, but I expect him to bounce back. He seems like a very intelligent player, and I expect him, this to just kind of be a one-off, but I was very surprised to see him making a lot of mistakes and kind of getting owned in the middle there. But yeah, our guard play was in general pretty bad. Tackle play, I mean, the whole line was bad. Hudson Card clearly looked rattled. A lot of happy feet, a lot of double clutching of the football. Wasn't getting the ball off in time, and then the receivers really weren't helping him out at all. Dropped not making catches or not even getting open. I don't think Josh Moore really, was open for a target until like the end of the third quarter or something like that. And he's a key guy. Whittington obviously made some key drops or just couldn't get connected with Card. Xavier Worthy definitely showed some flashes, but it was so minimal that it really didn't, make anything out of it. So yeah, offense was clearly from the beginning very bad. And I was wondering about if quarterbacks were going to be changed out. I was totally cool with him leaving Card in there up until the half, but I think at the half, everyone kind of in agreement was like, all right, this just isn't, going to happen tonight with Hudson. Time to put Casey in. And I even remember like seeing a tweet or something that, Casey's warming up on the sidelines. And I'm like, okay, great. And then he kept Card in there for like 2 or 3 more drives, which he scored on one of them. So that was good. But after the turnover, especially the fumble, it was just like, it was done. The game was out of reach. And it was nice to see Casey get in there and do well and immediately lead the offense down the field and see it click. But again, it's too little too late at that point, and showed good stuff. I liked his effort. His effort was very apparent, especially on that 4th and goal play where he had to completely scramble out of the pocket to like the right side of the field and then kind of smash his body into the end zone in a game that was already practically over, but that showed me a lot. So those are just kind of some initial thoughts. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more details as we continue to talk about this game, but all in all, I guess final thought that I want to touch on is, and I want to hear this from you, so this will be our next talking point. What did you think about our coaching staff, our play calling, our coaching staff and play calling? Because I thought that was everything that I'm hearing this week from press conferences and players and stuff, is they say it's a matter of execution. I thought the play calling was bad. How did you feel watching the game in person, just with the creativity and how they were running the ball or lack thereof, really?
Yeah, it was pretty clear that we could not run the ball at all. And there were some times where Sark just kept on insisting on running the ball. that specifically like 4th and 1. I think it was, I don't know, third quarter maybe, but we had a 4th and 1, and we just ran it straight up the gut, like just telegraphed, and it just got destroyed. And that's there were a couple of questionable play calls on the offense, but honestly, I just think that the O-line was so bad that no matter what we tried to do, even if it was a great play call, it just looked horrible and never really executed because we were just getting physically dominated. Defensively, there was a couple times they kept running those outside zones, like those sweeps with their fast running backs. And there were like so many times when I was up in the upper deck and I was like, there's clearly no one to the left side of the field, no one in the box to the left side. They're just going to hand it off in the sweep and he's going to take off and get 10, 15 yards easily. And he would do it. And it was so infuriating. I was like, Jesus, I thought PK was a really good coordinator. And that was mainly the third and fourth quarter when I started seeing that. So I think at that point that like we'd already given up. But yeah, there was definitely some just like those run fits were really bad at times. But I mean, honestly, I don't blame it too much on the play calls. I think just the personnel and execution was more of the reason why everything went so bad. I mean, even when Hudson did have time, he didn't really make good decisions. He would, if he did run, it'd be way too late. He was very reactionary. He was not, proactive like Casey was. There was no urgency from him. It just seemed like he was a deer in the headlights from the first down on. So, yeah, I think a lot of things were issues on Saturday, but I think, the play calls and stuff were, more on the bottom of the list, but they could definitely improve. I'm not saying Sark called a perfect game or anything like that, but I think the more pressing issue is the offensive line and then quarterback. Even the defensive line didn't play great. So, yeah, I would blame it on the personnel more, but man, everything went poorly on Saturday. But I want to also mention what's wrong with Cameron Digger, our boy, man. Sark did bring up a good point. It was a 52-yard field goal that he missed, so you can't be too mad about that.
It wasn't even that close, though. And he's typically, if anything, he's like just barely misses those. Typically hits those. I feel better with him on the long field goals than some of the short ones, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't know. something mentally or maybe he's fine and I don't know, just missed a few. That definitely something to follow and watch.
Yeah, I read that he's 8 of 16 on his last field goal kicks, so like 50%. That's not very good. That's not what we need out of him. No. And he dropped that punt, which really killed us. I mean, gave him. Luckily, our defense held after we muffed that punt and gave him the ball to 10. Our defense held him to a field goal somehow, but you can't have that. So Digger, surprising, man. He's a senior now. You would think he would just get better as a senior, but he's kind of taking a step back. So hopefully he can clean that up in the future. But I also want to talk about, I'm talking about Casey Thompson, obviously being named the starting quarterback. It was super clear. I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier that when Hudson Card was in the game, he was just very lackadaisical, really not forcing the issue, not challenging the defense, not even taking what the defense would give him. I mean, Hudson, for whatever reason, will not run the ball as a quarterback, or he really does not want to run. And I know that's kind of a Sark thing. He doesn't want his quarterbacks to run, but Casey was just thinking, I need to get this first down. How am I going to move the chains? And he did that.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously Casey brings a leadership element, like, the juice, very vocal leader. It kind of reminds me of Kobe Bryant, honestly, like in his interviews and stuff. He's one of those type of athletes, where he's just a great leader. He gets it. And so I think that can really help our team going forward because our offensive line, it's going to be very rare that they give us clean pockets to throw against good teams. So I think Casey's more suited for, chaos and extending plays and keeping the chains moving in scenarios like that. If you put Hudson Card in Alabama's offense last year opposed to Casey's, then yeah, Hudson Card probably looks better in that than Casey does. But we don't have Alabama's offense right now, not even close. And it's interesting in the press conference how Sark even said that we need to continue to run Casey because it helps us move the offense. And Sark's never been a fan of running the quarterback. So That's when you know that the offensive line is the problem when Sark's just saying, yeah, run, just move the ball. So I think it'll be really good for us. I wish he could have, honestly, hindsight's 2020, but if we would have started Casey, I feel like that game would have went a lot differently. We probably still would have lost.
Oh yeah.
But we would have been way more effective, I think, in moving the ball and in turn keeping the defense off the field, not so gassed. So who knows? I mean, so we'll see. We'll see. Casey's got the job now, and I don't think he's going to give it up. So it's going to be fun to watch him over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. We'll touch a little bit more on Casey in a minute. Let's finish up our Arkansas thoughts here. So I'll pass it back to you in a second, just to kind of give your final parting shots or whatever you want to call it. One point that I wanted to bring up is I was watching this game like I guess kind of typically do with friends, and some of them are pretty tuned in, like myself, like you, like those watching, that are on the message boards or reading articles or, staying up to touch with the team. Others are not. Others are very casual fans. And us fans that are very tuned into the team, we think that we know a lot, but I come to realize that sometimes the stuff that you hear from the very casual fans might actually be some of the most profound stuff. For instance, in this game, from the beginning, people were some of these people that I was watching the game with were saying, Card is no good. Why do we have Card in the game? We know what Casey we can do. We've seen him, in playing time in the Alamo Bowl and whatever. Really, anytime that Casey's played outside of the spring game, he's looked really good. Why don't we put him in? And here I am, explaining like, well, Card's got this elite arm and Sark picked him for a reason and he's a better fit for the offense. And if you watch his high school tape, he's great, or he's great in practice. I'm giving all my reasons as to why Card is our guy and why he's our future too. At least so it seems. And as I'm doing this, Card is continuing to struggle throughout the game. And eventually they put Casey in and Casey tears it up and they're like, see, I told you so. And I think that comes back to just like, sometimes your eyes tell you more than what all the reading, all the practice film, all the other stuff that you look at as a passionate fan or someone that's really into the game. Sometimes just the most basic, test is really what the answer. The answer is there in front of you without having to really dig that deep. And it makes sense now. This team needs a leader. That's one thing that stood out to me incredibly in this game is who's leading this team. Because in the past we had Sam for all those years where it was obvious he's the alpha, he's the guy. On defense, I would say that Overshone's probably the leader, but all in all, I feel relatively good about the defense in terms of people, upperclassmen having a voice and stuff. Offensively, I don't know who that is. I can't think of a single receiver that's really a leader. I know that Bijan and Roshan are vocal guys, but typically a running back isn't your leader. Offensive line, I don't know. It seems a little messy there. And quarterback, Card is working on becoming more of a leader, but naturally he's more of a quiet guy. And one thing that these people that I were watching the game with, outside of the fact that Card was struggling, is they were very upset and vocal about how Card would just sit on the sidelines, quiet, not talking to anyone, just kind of clearly in his thoughts and just trying to process what's going on. And they're like, he shouldn't be playing. Not only is he doing bad, but why is he sitting alone? Why is he not talking to his receivers about routes? Why is he not talking to the coaches? Why is he not on the phone with the guys in the booth? And they were, and they were clearly very frustrated about it. And they're like, and I'm like, well, that's also kind of who Card is. But again, they're right. You need, especially with a, young team like this, kind of an inexperienced team, you need a galvanizing leader to really take control. And we all know that Casey can very easily be that guy. He's shown those qualities from the beginning. So especially after this game and going forward, I think it's very clear that, Casey probably should have been our guy from the beginning. Card is a fabulous talent. And I totally understand Sarkisian picking him in the first place, but we don't have the ideal situation to be putting a young guy. This isn't Clemson. This isn't Trevor Lawrence coming into Clemson where everything is set up for him to succeed. This is very much a work in progress to where start the guy that not only has the leadership capabilities for when adversity strikes, but also the guy that's more dual threat and is more decisive and a little bit more veteran. It makes sense. And those, we had those thoughts leading up to right before the season started where Card was named the starter. But yeah, I took a lot away from watching the game with the particular people that I watched. And again, it was all stuff that I would have never thought had I watched alone, but got to give it to them. They kind of read this team much better than I would have thought. So yeah, just kind of some interesting thoughts I wanted to share. Cause again, like you watch us, I'm sure you watch other people as well. And are subscribed to, different YouTube channels as well as different message boards and stuff. And we always are, so much in the fine lines and looking at the nitty gritty details. But sometimes when you're with people that don't look at that and see things more big picture, they actually tell you a lot. So just kind of an interesting 2 cents I wanted to give real quick. Myers, how about you wrap up final thoughts on the Arkansas game?
Yeah, you made up great points. I mean, bottom line is Casey, he gets in the game and he moves the ball and he scores. I think he's pound for pound probably one of the greatest quarterbacks in Texas ever. If you look at his stats, he has phenomenal stats in limited time. Yeah, and going with Casey, I think that's really important right now because we're in win now mode, like Steven from Fanatic Perspective will say, mainly because we need talent. Our roster is not there to compete, in the SEC at the top level. We need big bodies in the offensive line. Defensive line recruiting is going really well. I like what Bo Davis is doing there, but we need to win at least 9 games really to close on, Devin Campbell, maybe Ernest Green, maybe flip Kelvin Banks, guys like those, Cam Dewberry. We can't do the 7-5 year one thing right now. We really can't. This is a critical time for Texas because we took kind of a weaker class last year as a transition class. So we need a really loaded class, specifically in the trenches. So I think going with Casey will help you get there and win now. But yeah, Hudson could be great down the road, but for this team, Casey's better at the moment. And then last thing I want to say is they were up there chanting SEC in the stands all night long, which was it was it was coming, but it's frustrating. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't think Arkansas's ever won the SEC, but I mean, I get it. They beat us. We're joining the SEC, so they were going to do that regardless. But I just want to speak on, it's been a theme recently, the last couple of days, is how Texas is just so hated by everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing up that topic. We don't have it in our notes, but I definitely wanted to bring that up too, but continue.
Yeah, like it's honestly insane. I think we're clearly the most hated team in college football.
Yeah.
And I'm not some homer just saying that, like, oh, look at us, we're so awesome, we're so hated. These people literally hated Texas. Like, I had so many fans come up to me that I was super nice with, nothing wrong at all. And they'd be like, you're the scum of the earth. Get out of here. It's like, okay, I don't know what we did to y'all. But yeah, Texas just has this huge target in our back. And Hudson Card, for as good of a quarterback as he is, I don't think he's got the demeanor right now to really, take on that target on your back. That's why I really like Casey Thompson. I think he even said today that he enjoys being the villain, and I wish that more of our team would take on that mindset because it just seems like we're okay with having this big target on our back and these teams getting up for us, and then we just don't match that level. We need to bring that level because we're the big villain. Everybody hates us, so I think we also need to use that in recruiting pitches too. I think there's an appeal to a lot of kids saying, "Hey, you can come play at the most hated school in the country. You can come be the bad guys. Come commit to Texas." I think we need to utilize that more and focus on that and just make sure we get players that understand what being a Longhorn means because it's going to be even worse going forward when we go to Morgantown and Ames. It'll probably be more hostile than going to Arkansas, honestly, since it's the last year in the Big 12. And they definitely want to stick it to us. So, and then obviously when it gets to the SEC, they're going to want to stick it to us too. So we just need to find a way to channel that, that hatred everybody has and just kind of reverse it onto them. Just wanted to bring that up. What do you think about that, Trevor?
Yeah, this weekend in particular I've felt that way for a while now. But especially this weekend, I completely, we have to be the most hated football program in all of sports. Because I mean, you think about historically some of the most hated ones, maybe like Miami, maybe a Notre Dame, a Michigan, Ohio State. But I mean, like Ohio State lost, and people were like, "Oh, Ohio State lost," but no one's rubbing their nose in the dirt about that. USC lost and fired their head coach mid-season. If that happened to Texas, oh God, everyone would be free. Oh, Texas is toxic. Texas is this typical. There'd be no end in sight at all. And sure enough, right now, no one's batting an eyelash. Like, oh, they fired, Clay Helton. Probably should have happened a while ago. We'll see who they get. Cool. And this is USC. I mean, they're a blue blood. They're one of the biggest brands in college football. And I'm not, I mean, maybe it's because I'm a Texas fan, but I really don't have any, fan bases stuck in my head quite like some of these others do with Texas being that evil empire type thing. And we're not even that good. That's the weirdest thing. Is there's nothing to really hang your hat on with this hatred. We're a historical program, sure, but I mean, I don't like comparing us to Miami, but I mean, Miami hasn't been all that great since, the early 2000s. And imagine if people just were constantly hating on Miami. It's weird. I mean, I guess that goes to show you just the power of the brand and everything, but is very bizarre to me. I don't understand it. And again, I'm a Texas fan. I went to the university, so maybe you have to not go in order to understand it, but it's just, I don't know. I guess you have to relish that and enjoy that to to be a Texas fan, or especially to be a player at the University of Texas. And I think you're right. I think you made a fabulous point that maybe our problem for the past few years is we're recruiting players that that aren't bad enough, that aren't cool being the bad guys. Because instead, I mean, I think we recruit a lot of really good men. I mean, good, upstanding, ethical, people. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe we need to get a little grimy and, kind of carry that bad boy card, kind of like back in, Mac's heyday with the defensive coordinator. Why am I blanking on his name? I always blank on names on this thing. Muschamp.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to go back to that. But yeah, this weekend, I wasn't surprised at all about the Arkansas hate. I have a few friends that went to Arkansas, and literally all of them posted pictures, horns down, every single one of them, in every picture that they took. And I'm just like, okay. I'm for it. Horns down doesn't bother me like it does, it doesn't for most Texas fans, but still, if that's literally what you're doing in every picture, and the scoreboard at the end of the game had, the horns down, graphics and stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand it. I really don't. And I'd like to try to understand it, but I don't know if I ever will. So yeah. I mean, I don't even hate Alabama that much. If Alabama loses, I'll laugh about it for 30 seconds and they're out of my mind. But yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense for some of these regional schools. I guess you could say Arkansas, because they have a lot of Texas kids that, let's be honest, probably didn't get into Texas. But it's not even just Arkansas, just even national. The nation. Yeah. Iowa State at College Game Day, they had a bunch of horns down signs in the background of the set, and they're playing their biggest rival in the biggest game of the year against Iowa. What are y'all doing? I mean, it's good. It's good marketing for Texas, but I just wanted to just point out how our team needs to meet that level, because there's always an extra notch up for Texas. So, and also I'm glad you mentioned USC firing Clay Helton. No mentions of them being a cesspool.
No,
but Watch LSU. They're going to fire Ed O 2 years after a national championship. Can you imagine if Texas did that? How toxic and the unrealistic expectations Texas has. But
Yeah,
LSU is going to do it, and they're going to be like, good move for LSU. And it's just the double standard is
it's
unreal.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I'll never understand it, and maybe I shouldn't even try. But it's just weird. It's weird. And this is not us complaining, by the way, for those that may be watching that aren't Texas fans. They're like, oh, they're bitching about being Texas fans. We're really not. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't get it. And if you could explain it to me in a reasonable manner, please do. I'd love to see a study. Someone write a thesis on this.
Yeah, I had an Aggie in my mentions on Twitter, and I asked him why are we the most hated? Why do y'all hate us so much? What did we do to y'all? And I guess A&M, obviously they have reasons to hate us because of the history, but he said that we're a bunch of entitled crybabies, and I was like, can you elaborate on that? And he didn't respond. So I guess we're perceived as entitled for some reason, but they don't really seem to explain why. But yeah, so I don't know, man. I could go on and on about this. I will say though, I think Arkansas, they definitely love doing horns down, and it was I don't mind. I like seeing horns down because it's just like we're on your mind. But I feel like when we join the conference, similar to OU, I think Arkansas is going to take on the horns down as like their permanent school sign because they seem to love it. Everybody was doing it, so I think that's going to stick, which is cool. I mean, I'm glad we play them every year now. Hopefully we get them in DKR next year. It's good to have them back on the schedule and everything. So yeah, I mean, anything else you want to comment on this game? Because it went pretty bad.
Yeah, let's throw that out and move on to Rice now. We've been talking for a while. So I guess Myers, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we're not going to really go into analyzing Rice. Why should we? But no offense. How about you touch on talk a little bit about Casey being the starter, what you expect, and also let's just talk about what we hope to see going forward into this game. What adjustments need to be made?
All right. Well, the first thing we need to mention is this sounds like coach speak, but it's super true. All of our goals are still really out there in front of us. I mean, we haven't opened Big 12 conference play yet. It's an early season loss. I mean, if Texas were to, go on a big run, then everything will be fine. But as far as this Rice game goes, I mean, obviously seeing Casey in as starting quarterback, I want to see him move the offense methodically like we did against Louisiana. I don't want to see any sacks, really any negative run plays at all. Our O-line needs to have a fire lit under them. They better be embarrassed after that showing against Arkansas. And I want them to take it out on Rice. I know Rice is garbage, but I want us to, execute. And I want to see Casey hit his receivers and our receivers not drop any passes. Jordan Whittington played great in week 1, took a huge step back in week 2, and needs to get back to that week 1 level. Defensively, I just want to see honestly, I want to see like a shutout or at least hold them to 7 points because I mean, our defense is pretty good. Our defensive line can improve, but I think the showing against Arkansas was more as a result of our offense just gassing the defense by never being on the field. So I just want to see us play a clean game. Some fire out of Casey. I loved what Hudson Card looked like in week 1, but one thing that bothered me was the way that he would just slowly walk onto the field, very monotone, just didn't really seem energetic out there. I want to see, that Casey energy that we've seen in the Alamo Bowl. Whenever he goes in, honestly, he scores. I want to see more of that. And then just want to see him, take on that leadership role. We need like an alpha, like you said, like a Sam Ellinger, at least on offense to, help rally the troops and keep morale high. And I think Casey's definitely going to do that for us. So I want to see it on Saturday. Anything in particular you want to see? I mean, obviously, let me add this last thing. If I want to see Dicker make every field goal he takes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see improvement on both sides of our line of scrimmage. That's really my biggest concern right now. Defensively, I'm sure we'll rebound, but offensively, I just want to see some big holes because our offensive line looked really good at the end of last season. So it's been a little disturbing that now they're looking so bad. I thought maybe we rounded a corner. And I don't think that's a great sign for us to be this poor after an off season and a new coaching staff and all this development under Kyle Flood. Are they actually improving? We'll see. So that's one thing to look at. I just want to see our wide receivers make plays. Saw a little bit of that in Louisiana, especially with Whittington. But I want to just see him get more involved. And, I want to see Worthy get a lot more targets than what he's getting, because right now it's very limited, which I guess I get. He's a younger guy, but let's get him involved, please, as well as get more back into the system. I mean, get all of them. I want to see a lot of passing, just to kind of get my confidence up in this core. Of course, running the ball, I expect Bijan to be fine. He looked good outside of the fact that he had nowhere to run last game. So I'm not concerned about a running game really at all. And then defensively, I'd love to see a low scoring shutout type game. I don't really expect to see it personally, just because that's kind of a rarity these days, even when you do play a poor opponent like Rice. But those are just kind of the main things. I mean, special teams, obviously, something to look out for. Hopefully Dicker gets some confidence back. But that and just Casey. Very curious to see how Casey does. And I really hope that he doesn't do poorly or then we're about to have an interesting conversation as Texas fans if Casey really stinks it up versus Rice, and see how Sark goes about it that way. But I don't expect him to. I really think that Casey at this point, he's been waiting to be the starting quarterback for Texas for so long. He deserves it. And I think he's the best fit for our team right now, especially after last game. And selfishly, I really want him to start, especially against Oklahoma. That's just a dream of mine. It's so cool to have, the son of an OU legacy be the quarterback for Texas. And that's going to be a massive talking point in the Red River game if he's the starters, and especially if he goes off. Oh, that'll feel so good. But so those are just kind of my things I'm looking forward to. Myers, any additional thoughts about Rice before we give some score predictions, or should we just pass on predictions in general?
No, we'll throw some quick predictions, score predictions, but we won't go in depth. But I want to just add one last thing I forgot to mention was I want to see Jatavian Sanders in the game. I mean, Cade Brewer is like fifth-year senior, and he's just still not as good as he was as a freshman. So I think it's time to, I know Jatavian's not as polished. He just got here in the summer. He's not an early enrollee. He's a freshman, but he's a 5-star. He's playing Rice. Go throw him in the game. Let him get those reps going. Get him ready. Get him polished. Baptized by fire, honestly, against Rice, because this is where you can afford to. And we need better tight end play. I mean, part of the reason the line was so bad was our tight end blocking was bad at setting the edge and stuff like that. So I think Jatavian is clearly the highest ceiling guy in the room. So he needs to be on the field in some capacity. If not there, put him on our D-line wasn't great either. I mean, put him on the edge on the D-line. He needs to be on the field, man. It's like one of our only 5-stars right now that's just like sitting on the bench. So we need to get him in there.
2 players. Wiley, why have we not seen more of him? I definitely want to see more of him, because he mentioned Jatavian Sanders, who I do want to see him too. But I especially want to see Wiley because, I mean, he seemed to be in the spring game, like relatively targeted, but I don't think he hasn't caught a ball yet. And I don't think I've really seen him on the field outside of blocking, which definitely isn't his strong suit. So curious about that. And then Alfred Collins, where's our guy? Where's Alfred? He didn't even really play much. At least I didn't see much in the Arkansas. Did you see him, Myers?
Yeah, he played more than he did in game 1, but I mean, he didn't.
Still very limited.
Yeah.
And then I guess one last thing that I want to see is I want to see a pass rush. That was non-existent against Arkansas. In fact, that was a talking point that I skipped. I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Arkansas recap. Yeah, that was kind of embarrassing that we just couldn't generate a rush whatsoever. And honestly, we probably could have blitzed this quarterback a little bit more. I think we would have gotten home on him. He was a good runner, but wasn't overly shifting the pocket and definitely wasn't looking to throw really at all. So I think if we blitzed, we could have gotten some big stops and prevented some of those long QB runs. But yeah, pass rush is important. I need to see Ray Thorne not look pedestrian. Ogofu can be elite. Well, maybe not elite, but he can be very good for us. And it was more like a goof who in the Arkansas game, it just didn't even see number 18 running around. So yeah, that is another thing I want to see.
Yeah, also Keandre Coburn, he's a guy that's always been hyped up a lot. He's pretty good, really, really cool. I mean, great personality, but I want to see more out of him. I mean, he's got all this potential, and he kind of got pushed around a little bit on Saturday. So I want to see Keandre start, feasting like he should be doing. But that's it, man. We can predict the game. Honestly, I'm sick of talking about the same thing over and over again in Texas.
Yeah, just negatives, negative. Give me your prediction then.
I got Texas winning 56-3. I think.
Wow.
I think we're gonna have a really good showing. I mean, or we need to. And Rice is not very good. They just got blown out by U of H, who's not very good. So
yeah, we
should blow them out. And I think we almost get the shutout, but not quite. So 56-3.
Yep. I got, what do I have? I got to look what I wrote down. I did 48-17. 17 might be a little too generous, but I was thinking like end of the game, like we give them a touchdown or they score with like 2 minutes left or something like that. And we basically hold them to 10 up to that point. But yeah, it'd be nice to see us put up 50. Definitely would show me like, oh, the Sark offense is alive and well, and we can build on this. But for now, I'm gonna go with 48. I think that's a safe line to draw. So somewhere in the high 40s, I think would be great. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'd love to see whatever. This will be my first Texas game since 2019 that I'll be attending with my family. So I'm quite jazzed to go, and especially with this like cooler weather this week, with this storm, I feel like we're not in that hot 90s weather. It's been in the 80s, and with the sun going down a little bit earlier, it's like getting some fall vibes. So that coupled with a night game against Rice should be a good time. But I will say that Arkansas loss did take a lot of wind out of our sails. Like I'm a lot more apprehensive now about Sark and Texas football, and kind of back to show me mode, which is never as fun as, just drinking Kool-Aid. So yeah.
No, man, we found our quarterback. Morale is high. I think we haven't started Big 12 play, so 11-1. Show me a loss in the schedule.
I like it. All right. Any final thoughts? Should we go ahead and wrap this up? I mean, again, just not a ton to say about Rice. Really just hoping that Texas shows out for the best.
Yeah, I got nothing on Rice. I know they have a McCaffrey at quarterback. So, I mean, talented kid, but yeah, this game's all about Texas. We should definitely blow the doors off them.
Good. All right. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this show. Definitely a little bit different than what we typically do for our game recaps and previews, but I felt like it was much needed. And I think we touched on some good points, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments. So with all that said, y'all take care. Be safe out there, and welcome.